Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 100, and 53. I'm sorry for burping. I decided to eat right before this because I realized that I was hungry, and I'm trying to plan ahead, trying to stay one step ahead of my stomach. I burned my tongue because I made some taquitos in my god-awful microwave. You remember the microwave that doesn't spin? We got it in like 6 months later. 6 months later, the belt in the microwave just snapped or what? I don't know what happened. Some part of the mechanism just broke down, and now I have to put the food in for like smaller increments of time and then open up the microwave and then turn the plate manually and then put it back in for like the next longest period. Dude, I went over to Kat's house the other day and I microwaved something and I had to restrain myself. I was like, wait, hang on. No, it actually works. It just works. I can just punch the numbers in and then it spins for the amount of time that I want. And then it comes out and it's like properly heated as opposed to like, oh, fuck, I hit like the dead spot. Because microwaves have dead spots. Did you know that? Microwaves have dead spots like randomly because it's waves, right? Waves go up and down. So there's just points where the heat just is not coursing through the box. And you have to like feel it out. I have to feel it out manually. That's why it spins. That's why it rotates. So everything gets cooked somewhat evenly, right? But no, I have to figure that out on my own. And it's like a huge... It's like, do we want to get another one so soon? It pisses me off. I hate that thing. I can't stand it. Ruin my mood. No. But I was in a good mood because a little bit ago, guess what? I had a pretty fun session of BlazBlue. That's right. I've never been... I think I've talked about my I might have mentioned it before, but my a little bit of friction I've had getting into BlazBlue actually trying to have fun in the game. I own it. I own Central Fiction and all that. And I've had like little gripes and stuff and things that I don't think would be that big of a deal. Stuff like the pace of the game, the sort of like, I don't know, moving back and forth. Something about... Okay. I think I came into BlazBlue and I sort of expected it to be like Guilty Gear. And that was my problem. And I think on a surface level, many people might assume that they play the same. But they really don't. Like those games... No BlazBlue game feels like any Guilty Gear game. They do not feel the same at all. Like the way that the buttons are designed, the way the movement flows and feels, the whole like the buffer window on things, the whole system of like rolling and all that, like it is very distinct. And my like, I don't know, just the speed you gotta input stuff is different, if that makes sense. It feels like that. Maybe it's not, but there's something that feels like it. I think the hit stop, there's like a different amount of hit stop in the, like when you hit someone in BlazBlue, there's like a boom, and it's different. I don't know how. I mean, I could go in with a magnifying glass and count and see like how much hit stun do like, heavies do, or hit stop specifically. Hit stop is when is the visual effect of like the screen freezing for a second when a big hit happens. And it's different. I think it's more. I think BlazBlue is more, and it just changes the pacing of it. It changes how it kind of feels. And I've just always had a little bit of trouble getting into it. For one, just because it is different, and I have to approach it as something that's different and not going to be like one-to-one transferable. For two, my online experience has just always been bad in that game. I have tried to boot it up like 2 times before, and it was either like, I can't find anyone. Like, this is a post rollback update too. Can't find anyone online. And then finally, I find someone in a room online, and like, oh, they've been waiting there for like 20 minutes, and they are just AFK and not paying attention, and we are not. I'm readied up, and they are just not paying it. They're just not there. So it's like, well, I got to back out, and I got to spend more. I'm spending more time looking for matches than I am playing matches. And then I just had this frustrating experience when I was finally able to match with someone. Either like they would just like one and done me. It was super annoying. I would get matched up with someone in like a player lobby, and then they just quit out. And I was like, what the. I couldn't get anything consistent going. Like, you need some time to get into it, to get into the groove of the game, you know? Especially if you're like learning it, if you're coming to grips with just like the basic feel of how it flows, and getting used to like just the basic comfort things of your character, like actually landing hit confirms and reacting to just basic stuff that you're doing. You need some time to acclimate yourself to that for kind of any game, really. And I never got that experience just because of people being annoying online. But finally tonight, I was able to actually jump into a room and play like a good, like maybe 7 or maybe 10 matches. I can't remember, with someone online, and it was the same guy. And we just rematched. He was playing Hakumen. I've been playing Azrael. And I actually had some fun. He was also like, he had like less than 100 games. He had like 40 something. Maybe it was like 70. I don't remember. But like under 100 games under his belt. And that meant that we were on a somewhat even playing field. He was clearly a lot more, he'd done a little more practice than me. Like, he was doing actual real ass combos. He was dropping some of them, and I was able to like tech out and stuff. But also I was playing Azrael, so that kind of evened the score a little bit, even things up. But it was actually fun. I was like, oh shit, I got a couple rounds, I got a couple games. It felt good. The game actually, it clicked a little bit for me. And was even a little bit fun. Wow, crazy. This interest kind of got kicked off by the fact that I just kind of out of the blue decided that I wanted to do all of the basic or easy mode combo trials for every character in the game. I don't know why. I have like a sickening love-hate relationship with combo trials, because frequently I hate them and they make me tear my hair out. But on the other hand, I think that they're cool, and I just like doing them. There's something really satisfying about doing a challenge like that. And sometimes they can even be fun, believe it or not. So I decided to do everyone's basic combo trials, and I got all of them, and I completed them tonight. I actually did this a while ago, but I didn't know Jubei, for some reason, despite the fact that this game has been out for years and it's ended its support for years, Jubei, the last character, is still like separate DLC that you have to buy for like $7 or $8. I don't know what that's about, but there's a big Steam sale, and I just noticed, oh, the Jubei DLC is like $2, or it's like $1 or something. Okay, I'll just buy him and finish all the combo trials. So I have now finished all the basic ones with one big asterisk, and that is goddamn Rachel Alucard's Trial 10. I cannot do that one. I probably could. It's too much of a pain in the ass, and it's too convoluted for my fingers to do. If you don't know, every character in BlazBlue is a 4-button game. It's a 4-button fighter. A, B, C, and D. Those are your main attack buttons. And those represent light, medium, heavy. And then D is your drive button. And drive is essentially like the gimmick button for every character. Every character has some kind of unique mechanic or system or whatever. And drive is how you interact with it. All of your D buttons and special moves and all that stuff. So for Rachel, she is a projectile zoner. She's like this gothic Lolita. Is she a vampire or something? I don't know. I think she's a I don't know. She has that aesthetic. She's like this gothic Lolita girl, and she is a projectile zoner. A pretty interesting projectile zoner, because her whole deal is that she tosses out these projectiles. She throws out a frog or like a little balloon thing or something like that. And then her drive, is a gust of wind, like a full stream gust of wind. And that affects her momentum. It can push her in any direction. It essentially gives her like an 8-way air dash. And it also affects the opponent's like movement and trajectory and stuff like that. So some kind of a neat physics idea. Physics mechanic, but it also notably affects many of her projectiles. So she can like blow them into you or blow them behind you or something like that. And she can combo using this. She can do this mid combo, which means that she can do all these wacky things that were like normally the opponent would get pushed away, but she can like she can use the wind to like push the opponent back down towards her or something and like continue the combo. And like it's neat, right? It's neat, but man, you're doing a lot of like fine little directional inputs while you're doing it, and it feels very. I know she's definitely like a very high skill cap character. I know that I am sure that there are people who can go crazy on Rachel and actually wrap their mind around like all the wind stuff you can do. It's cool. It's just like a huge pain in the ass, and it's the only one that I was like, I don't know, what's her last one? It's like you have to like launch them, and then you can only do the wind after like on the like almost like one of the last frames. It's like actually a really tight link, because otherwise it cancels out of the move too fast, and then they don't get like the right height of like a launcher. It's this really tight combo, and then you got to do this like instant air dash thing, and I was, yeah. So I'm not gonna do that one. Fuck that one. But some of them were actually pretty fun. I thought Terumi was cool. I think Terumi's like a really cool concept for a character, that he's just all about meter. Like he just builds meter all the time. He has very few special moves, but it, like way more supers or just moves that use his, like he has to burn meter in order to use. It's cool. S was surprisingly fun. I remember a couple of them were like, yeah, they were decently fun. Who else do I remember as having ones that I would actually call fun? Tagers were weirdly enjoyable. I usually kind of shudder at the idea of combo trials for grapplers, because grapplers, they're not usually like combo characters, right? So if they have combos, if they have combo trials, I am used to them just being the most cursed shit imaginable, with like, oh, you thought they didn't have any combos? Here's the weirdest fucking conversion you've ever seen, that you're like, oh, what the hell is, what is this? It's like the character's just supposed to like get up close to you and hit you with the command grab or something. Like they're not designed to do that. So all their combos end up being like really esoteric and weird. But Tagers were actually really fun. Tagers' whole gimmick is he's a big, heavy grappler guy, but he has a magnetism mechanic. So he can like hit you with something and then put this magnetic debuff on you, and then literally like suck you in, like pull you in with his gauntlets. And it's really neat. I'm going to go into standing desk mode because the circulation in my legs is starting to hurt. Whoa, here we go. Woo. All right. Can you hear that? There we go. All right, cool. Now I can stand and talk. So Tagers were actually really fun. I was very scared about doing 360 motions on a leverless, because 360 motions are kind of designed to be done on a stick and not what is essentially a keyboard. It is one of the motions I would say is like approaching it is like, I would say probably harder than doing it on stick. But you can just hit the cardinal directions and get it somewhat consistently. Carl sucked, but he's like a puppet character. I kind of expected that. Arakunes were weirdly easy. Bullets were kind of neat. Platinums were like insanely easy. I was shocked. Platinums were incredibly easy. She's like the random item character of the game. And then I don't have any like super strong thoughts on most of them. Most of them were fine. Most of them were just fine. I didn't realize how much Mai is just a Tekken character. She is really just a Tekken character. Like, she has a whole system of strings. Weird that that's the second Arxis game with a Tekken reference in like a character's moveset. Ramlethal in Exerd also works like that, where she has all of these like long button string combinations. Mai, I think, might even take it a little further, because she does that thing. She has that interesting, weird thing that I've never seen a non-3D fighter do. It's like in Tekken, they don't really have like quarter circle motion. They do. So the way that Tekken will do it is they'll do a quarter circle motion, but it's just the motion. And that essentially like puts you into this little forward step. This little like forward step animation. And then characters will have different follow-ups out of that. Like in a regular 2D fighter, that would typically just be like you just have like 3 different variations of the move depending on what button strength you do or something like that. But Mai actually has that, like, she has a whole move to that's just one of her specials is just doing a quarter circle forward. I'm like, all right, that's kind of neat. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my general thoughts. The BlazBlue does have a cool cast, even if I am on the record as not really liking many of the character designs or not gelling with them just from like an aesthetic point of view. Yeah, no, but I actually had a decent amount of fun. I might even play again. Wow, me playing a game for 2 days in a row. That's how you know it's crazy. So that Elden Ring DLC came out. I'm not going to talk about it because I haven't played it. I haven't even played Elden Ring. But I will say, okay. So, I'm on the record I had like a decently long diatribe about why I didn't like Dark Souls 3. And I thought that I explained myself pretty well. Maybe I could like sum it up a little easier than I was working through a lot of thoughts on that segment. But like I am not, I think I was talking to like Prox or someone, and I was like, yeah, I would probably enjoy a Souls game if it was like 20 hours long or something, if it was like half as long, and which I think is what I said the last time. And whoever I was talking to told me like, oh, you would hate Elden Ring because it's like 4 Souls games in one. And I was like, oh, okay, I have negative interest in it now. I have negative interest in playing that now. Here's the thing. Here's how I'm oppressed. I do not have an interest in this series very much anymore, unless they were going to make a Bloodborne PC port or something, which I would be interested in checking out, because fucking every time I bring this up, someone goes, you should try Bloodborne. Oh, you would like Bloodborne. I wish I could play it. I am surrounded by people who love Souls games. I have multiple friends, multiple acquaintances, and many of the people who I follow on the internet are really into Souls games. I am just like this weird... I am like the gay guy who doesn't like Rent. I'm the one gay dude in the commune who doesn't like Rent. And I have to sit there and listen to the fucking soundtrack and hear people talk about it, and I have to go, dude, this, oh my god. I'm talking about fucking Rent again. That's me. That's how I feel. And I'm starting to understand why I haven't had this in a while, right? Because most of the time, if you don't like something, you have some sort of control on the internet to just avoid it. You can just like I don't care about Five Nights at Freddy's. I can avoid it for the most part, unless there's just like kind of a funny meme or something like that, right? But I don't really care about that series. I can keep it at an arm's distance away. I can keep it an arm's length, arm's distance, whatever. I can keep it at a decent distance away from me, to the point where I'm not like forced to look at Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. And that's just fine, you know. I don't have to engage with anything. But in this specific scenario, I am positioned in like the worst place possible. There are like tracker missiles fucking striking all around me. I'm in the very center. And I cannot avoid the blast radius of Elden Ring and Souls discussions. And I think this is how resentment gets built up. I get why people don't like a popular thing. I get it, okay? I've never been like I hate that thing because it's popular. I probably was when I was like 9 or something. Like everyone hated Justin Bieber, you know? Everyone hated that guy. But like in my current age, I would not consider myself to be someone who hates the current popular thing. More so is I have this, my version of that is I'm just very disinterested in it. Like if something's popular, I'm like, I don't think so. I just don't want to get around to it. I have no ill will. I just choose not to engage with it for some, like all of my interest in engaging with it just disappears. It just evaporates. And that's worked out for me. Well, probably not. I've probably missed out on stuff I otherwise would have liked. Remember when I was like, Smiley Friends, I'll probably like it. I'm just not going to watch it. And then we watched it and I was like, oh, I love this actually. That's a recent example. Oh, my neck. I understand now how resentment gets built up. Because, man, when you don't really like... I don't hate Dark Souls. Like, I think if anyone actually listened to that segment and you understood my complaints with it, and specifically, like, why I don't like it, it's just a very specific matter of taste. That I'm just like, okay, it's just not a thing that's designed for me in this really specific way. But having to see it over and over and not being able to escape, like I go on the internet for 5 seconds, and I've been having to waste time on like social media or listen to podcasts or whatever, because the video I'm working on right now, I was like, maybe I want to send some emails out to some people before, like maybe I can like get some statements on some behind the scenes stuff. At this point, doesn't really look like it's going to happen, but I've been waiting for a couple days. Just before I start on the script, right? I just want to see if I could, because I'm working on topic, and there's not a lot of behind the scenes info out there. And I was like, what if I just reached out to some people? And I've just been in like standby mode. Sometimes sometimes you just the nature of this work is that you just have to send some emails out and like wait for a bit. And I'm like, okay, I'll play video games while I'm waiting. Because I can't start on the script or anything. So, I'll just be intermittently checking social media or something. And I cannot escape from people talking about the fucking Elden Ring and the DLC and like how it's actually super cool to use summons or something. I don't know what any of this means. I don't care. Please stop telling me about it. I just want to stop hearing about it. And I cannot escape, because it's not like things being recommended to me. It's like just people that I follow. Fucking everyone is talking about it, and it's been like 2 weeks. It's been like 2 weeks, and the review score went down because people were mad because it was too hard, and talking about game journalists are bad at games, but actually the journalists played it. But I don't stop talking about it. Stop it! I'm telling everyone right now. I'm telling everyone right now. Stop talking about Elden Ring. Okay? Can we get back to things that I care about, that I like? I came up with like a better analogy I came up with like a more succinct. This is what I do: is I think about something over and over and over again, and I go over it in my head 100 times until I figure out like exactly like how I want to say it. And I came up with like a better analogy. I think I might have like vaguely talked about this, or I might have gone like in this direction the first time I talked about Dark Souls 3. But I want to dump it on you guys because I don't know, I'm proud of this. And I think it's actually like a better analogy and a better like simpler explanation of what I'm talking about. Okay, just to get it out there for posterity's sake, because I feel like the original was probably a lot of me rambling about shit. Okay, so here's the very specific problem that I have with Dark Souls that kind of turns me off from it. And because I watched a Carl Jobst video that was like, oh, yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. Okay, so you guys know Rubik's Cubes. You guys know a Rubik's Cube, like the toy. Everyone knows what it is. So a Rubik's Cube, if you just like jumble it up, and then you're like, oh, how do I solve this? You cannot brute force it. If you just twist and twist randomly, you cannot. You're never gonna get to the end. You're never gonna finish it. You're never gonna get all the sides the same color. Fuck. What was the next part of the analogy? Right. You cannot brute force it. Here's an interesting fact about the normal 3x3x3 Rubik's Cube that everyone is familiar with. The maximum number of moves that you need to solve a Rubik's Cube is 20. No matter how jumbled up you get that cube, you can solve it in 20 moves or less. Maybe it's just like a one turn, like you just turn it once, and I just turn it back the opposite direction one time. It's a one move, right? But no matter if you jumble the entire thing up in a completely random way, there is a theoretically perfect 20 move sequence that will solve it, right? So humans cannot like perfectly find that 20 move sequence. So what people have done is they have invented systems. They have invented systems for finding the solution. And oftentimes it will take more than 20 moves. It might take 30, 40 moves, who knows. But essentially what you're doing when you pick up a jumbled up Rubik's Cube is you're just kind of working the system. Of like, I turn it this way, I turn it this way, based on this. I don't know how it works, I just know that it exists. So it is not like the solution to the puzzle, it's just the method, the process for getting to the solution. And then you just execute it. You just run the system. This is how Dark Souls combat works. That's how Dark Souls combat works. That's how I figured it out. It is very, very difficult to brute force a sufficiently jumbled up Dark Souls Rubik's Cube. Because the game is not designed in a way where you can like do that. Many of the enemy, like maybe like super fodder enemies, yeah, you can go run up and just hack them to death. But anything more than that, you have to exercise like a little bit of patience. You have like, okay, most enemies in Dark Souls, I would say, are like let's just call it like a 5 move cube. Where you gotta like, they have a little bit of the I don't know, most. There's like a whole big tier of enemies that you were consistently dealing with in Dark Souls. I'm talking about 3, by the way. Probably varies between game, but I don't care. Where like their whole deal is they run up and then you block one attack that they do and then you hit them 2 or 3 times and they die. That's like a 5 move complexity enemy. And then you jump all the way up to the bosses who are like the totally jumbled up 20 move minimum type of fight. So my problem is that I can go into any fight, and once I wrap my head around how the game works and what it expects of me, I can go into any boss room and I can hit my head against the wall 100 times and figure out how it works and what I need to do, unless they have like a little gimmick or something. And then from there, it's just it's just running the system. That's probably part of running the system, but that's running the system, right? And eventually, with just patience and just repeated attempts, I can do it. And that's kind of like what frustrated me about that game, was that I would beat bosses. I would look up as like, oh, this is considered a really hard boss. And I was pissed off because it felt like it was really easy once I beat it. Like, it wasn't satisfying because it felt like it was actually easy and I was just taking a really long time for reasons I couldn't understand. Maybe like lack of patience or whatever. Who knows? But that was like what my experience was. So when people talk about all of the depth of the combat system, as I understand it, it's a lot of like, oh, there's a bunch of different weapons and there's a bunch of different builds and equipment and this and that and different enemies that have all this. And my response to that is that like all of the creativity of the fight happens outside of the fight. It all happens in like the meta strategic part of the game where you're deciding on your equipment and you're deciding on the weapons that you want to use and you're deciding on the build that you want to go for and the types of damage and how you want to upgrade your thing to add this kind of thing to it. And that all happens outside of the fight. But within the fight, you're just running the system. You're just solving the cube. Right? And for me, that kind of gameplay, I am okay with running the system, but I can only do it for so long. I can only do it for so long before it gets tiring. And I guess other people don't have a problem. They enjoy that. They enjoy those two parts of the game. The other problem for me was that I think, as I said before, I just didn't like any of the other weapons. I didn't like how any of the other weapons felt. So I just sort of felt like, yeah, I was not getting a lot of variety out of the game. That's just how the way that the game is designed. I'm fine with that. I just don't want to play that for 50 hours. So that is my more succinct, metaphorical, analogous explanation for my problem with the way that the Dark Souls are designed. I'm assuming, again, I only played 3, but I'm assuming that is probably the case with the other games as well. I can't imagine that they are designed in super drastic ways. Yeah, you know what's weird is like, I feel like I don't hear people talk about what they like about those games very much. I just hear people talk about them, but I just like what's in them. They just don't talk about what they like about them. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention. Is that true? I'm sure that there are, right? I haven't, I must admit, I have not gone and watched like the fucking 10-hour deep dive analyses of Dark Souls 1. No, I have not put myself through that. But just in like casual conversation, like I understand, like when Doom Eternal came out, I knew pretty quickly like why people specifically, even without having played the game, I knew why people liked it, because they would like talk about the gameplay and stuff. But I never hear about that with Souls games. They just kind of talk about the stuff that's in them, right? Like they just talk about like this area or this thing. But I never hear someone talk about like, oh, I love the way that it feels like this or something. Or maybe it is just talk like, I don't know, like on a first run of the like. I guess I hear people talk about how much they like doing different builds and stuff like that. But that's like after you've played the game multiple times. Like what is supposed to be like the crazy hook that makes you love it like the first time around? I'm honestly curious, right? Like I'm honestly, I'd like to hear about like, tell me in the comments. The first time you played a Dark Souls game, what was it that you were like, oh, I love this shit? Like, is there a moment? Is there a specific feeling? Is there a mechanic? Like, what aspect of it really excited you that kind of, like, just sort of failed to make it all the way over the hill with me? I don't know. So, the last time I talked about Arkham City on the last episode, it turns out that I was, like, maybe 4 from beating the game. So, yeah, I beat the game later that night while that episode was like rendering. I was literally finishing the last boss as it rendered. Dude, it takes so much long. It takes at least 2 to 3 times as long. It takes like twice or 3 times as long to render something on my laptop as it does my PC. It is crazy, the difference in power. I finished Arkham City. Most of my thoughts are generally the same, like about the quality of the gameplay and the open world and all that. But I guess I have a couple additions because now I have not only finished the game, but I've also sort of 100%ed it. I did all the Riddler trophies. I did all yeah, that's kind of like I did all the side quests. I did all the Riddler trophies and everything that's tied to the main story. The only things that I haven't done are like the Riddler, the Riddler's Revenge. The Riddler's when he goes, Batman, it's me, the Riddler. You have to know that when I'm playing these games, I am constantly doing that in my head. I'm going, Batman, it's me. No, you know it's me, the Riddler. I can't stop myself from doing that voice. That's my impression of the Riddler. Like, he's so proud. He's so proud of his riddles. Here's something that I wasn't able to talk about because I didn't have like the full scope of the game in mind. Catwoman is a playable character in this game. And she is a really weird part of the game. She is probably the worst implemented part of it. I don't mean like worst part. I mean very specifically worst implemented. It is really weird. Her inclusion is really weird, and it almost feels like either it was cut down drastically during development, or it was like, I don't know, it feels like it was supposed to be a separate campaign or a DLC add-on or something like that. But like, okay. Here is how Catwoman weaves into the game of Arkham City. So the game actually opens with a Catwoman section that lasts like 2 minutes, and then she gets captured. That becomes a running theme. The writers, or would this be narrative designers? I don't know. The only way that they can figure out how to transition between the two characters is just that one of them gets captured. It's like really funny. It literally happens every single time. They get captured or incapacitated in some way. And then it's like, swap to the other one. So it opens with like a 2-minute sequence of Catwoman that feels kind of weird and random. Because the actual opening of the game with Batman is like good. Like I like it a lot. It's Batman. Bruce Wayne gets like arrested for mysterious reasons. He gets dragged into this new Arkham City. There's a whole sequence of him escaping or trying to escape, and then entering through the entrance to the city, like all the inmates yelling at him. He has like a fist fight in handcuffs with the Penguin and his goons, and it's cool. You got like some civilian mode. Some civilian mode fighting. You like break out of the handcuffs. It's a neat little sequence. And then you go all the way up to this building and you get Alfred to like airdrop you your bat suit, and then you suit up and it's like, all right, the game's begun. And it actually feels like a nice title drop moment, you know? I kind of wish that they'd dropped the title there. I think do they? No, I don't think they do. So this whole Catwoman sequence at the start is just really strange because it's so short. I guess it's because like it's supposed to set up how the first thing you gotta do is go rescue her. So it's to set that up. I don't know. It feels weirdly implemented. Then you do a bunch of Batman stuff. You do like a decent amount of like a couple hours of Batman stuff at a couple locations. You go through this whole section in the steel mill, which is like Joker's big complex. And then that section, this is, I guess, going to have spoilers for the game. That section ends with Batman getting like knocked out. And that's the whole thing where he gets like poisoned and all that. That sets up the rest of the game. But after he gets knocked out, guess what? You switch over to Catwoman, because that's the only way that the writers or whoever knows how to transition between the characters. So then you do like a little bit of stuff as Catwoman. You like go to her apartment and you go, I think you do something else. No, like major objectives or story stuff. Catwoman doesn't have like real important story things in this game. She is very external feeling. And then she goes to like Poison Ivy's place and gets guess what? She gets captured by her. And we transition to Batman, and then like the rest of the game happens with Batman. It is very weird. Like when you look at the timeline, the whole game is supposed to take place on one night, right? Which is already very silly. But the fact that that feels like such a, I don't know. That feels like such a excuse. I have no clue to just make the timeline of events kind of make sense, because you go through there is so much shit that happens with Batman. You go through so many different like plot lines, and it's crazy. And then you get all the way to like this climactic moment, or not climactic, but like real third act shit. And then guess what? He gets pinned under rubble. And then guess what? You switch over to Catwoman, and she's still being like captured. She's like still captured or something. No, wait, what is it? There's like a little, there's like 3 sections. No, hang on. Yeah, there's only like 4 sections really in total. All of her parts are like really brief. There's like a stealth section, and then she's like, oh, I guess I gotta go save him. And then you switch back over to him, and then you like actually finish the game. And then you switch back over to her basically when the free roam element, like post game, starts, and like the rest of the game, content you can complete. It's really weird. Like all of her sections are really short. There's only like 3 of them really. They're not super substantial, and it's such a strange implementation, right? Like it feels like I almost wonder if there was meant to be like 2 campaigns or something. It feels like the type of thing where there would have been a Batman storyline and then a Catwoman storyline, and then you might have played them separately or whatever. And then that would have like made use of all the different locations around the world, and then they would like cross over at the end. That seems like what it feels like it was supposed to be, but instead she just gets these very short segments. Her gameplay isn't quite as fleshed out as Batman. It's not nearly as fleshed out as Batman. Batman has so many different things you can do, and gadgets and mechanics, and like different types of takedowns, and like ways to use the gadgets with the enemies and combo stuff together. And it's genuinely like this game's combat and the way it flushes it out from Arkham Asylum is cool. I like it a lot. Like I really have not even started to, I feel like I've not even started to grasp it, because you have so many options available to you. But it's super cool. And Catwoman has like a couple moves. She gets like a couple moves that she can do, and that's it. Yeah, it feels like it should have been like a DLC or something. Or I don't know why it's there, except for they just really wanted to have Catwoman playable, which is like a neat idea. It just is a little like half baked, I suppose. Not enough to hurt the game. it hurts the pacing a little bit. Like that last time you switch over to her, like Batman getting pinned under the rubble is like, holy shit, dude, what's gonna happen next? Oh, okay, now I got to do this whole stealth thing with Catwoman. And no, okay, all right, okay, I guess I'll go through. I'll spend like 10 minutes on this, and then we'll get back to Batman. And yeah, I don't know. This it's not the most amazing script. I think I mentioned this the last time, but yeah, there's moments where I'm like, why did the character do that in that way? Why couldn't she? Yeah, why didn't Batman lie for like 5 seconds to get Ra's al Ghul's blood, and then just like peace out? Again, I like that Clayface has a surprise appearance at the end as like the sort of last boss. Now he is the last boss. I like Clayface. That's cool. Okay, so I mentioned how much I like the open world, and I still do. I like it quite a bit. I am a little disappointed by the lack of places that I can go into. So there was a post a little while ago that I saw that was like, how do you like having a city handled in a game? Do you prefer it to be like a bunch of houses and buildings and stuff, but you can't go in any? Or do you prefer having like a very small amount of buildings, but you can go in all of them and they're really detailed inside? Or do you like some kind of middle ground? For me personally, I think it depends on the game and what you're trying to do, which may seem like a cop-out answer, but it really does depend. So like in a game, in like a Bethesda game, right, in a Fallout, that's a very ground level game where you're just walking around. You're walking around the countryside, you're walking on the road, and it's kind of important then that things that you interact with, you go into a house and it's at least modeled and might have a couple things inside. For me, that level of detail helps ground me in the world. In a game like this, I don't need that as much because the movement is so much crazier. You are zipping all across the city. And if all of those things, if there was actually that level of detail, let's forget about how feasible that even is on a development side. But if there was actually that level of detail, it would kind of be a waste. It would actually, if you were to actually engage with all, like if you could walk into every apartment or something, it would just be like, it would just slow the gameplay down. It would be kind of annoying. And kind of a waste of time. So no, I'm perfectly fine with the majority, 95% of the buildings in this game just being set dressing, essentially. However, if you have a cool looking notable landmark, I want to go inside the landmark. I want to go in there. And it does it with a couple places. You can go in, the old Gotham City Police Department. There's the steel mill, which is a major area. There's the museum, the subway. Like these are all areas that are like these are complex, detailed interiors with like big. Those are like big zones essentially of their own. Very similar to the parts of the prison from Arkham Asylum. More linear areas, and I like that. But then you've also got like what is it, Gotham Olympus or something, which is like, oh, that's obviously where Maxi Zeus is. That kind of obscure Batman villain who's like a mob cult leader who thinks that he's Zeus. And like right across from it is the Gotham Casino. And then there's Poison Ivy's, like, it's a greenhouse or something. It's like overgrown with plants and everything. You go there as Catwoman, but it's essentially just 3 floors of just combat. Very simple. And a little bit disappointing. Like, I want to go in those places. I want there to be like a little thing that I can do inside. you know? It would be cool if there were just like my dream version of this game, which I'm sure had to make a lot of concessions, right? I'm sure this game had to make a lot of concessions during development. But my dream version is I wish that there was like a Batman part of the game and a Catwoman part of the game. And like I said earlier, you know, it would crisscross, but they're doing different things during the story. Catwoman isn't tied up for fucking 70% of it. And then Catwoman could go into these other places that Batman never gets to go because he doesn't have a reason or whatever. I think that would have been cool. You just kind of split it up. You take various different Batman characters and divvy them up between the two playable characters, and you get a chance to show off like some obscure ones, some that you didn't get. Like Scarecrow isn't in this game. He's referenced. There's a little reference to him. Killer Croc isn't in this game. There's, you know, references to him. Yeah, I don't know. That it would have been cool. I thought it would have been neat. You know, we're building like the ultimate Batman game here. Not so much a gripe, just as like, it feels mean to even call it potential because the game itself has a lot of meat on it. This is a meaty, satisfying amount of game for your money. Well, I'm like struggling to swallow right now. There we go. But yeah, those are like my wishes. I wish it had been like that. I have one game left in this series, Arkham Knight, which I remember. Okay. People hated that game when it came out. I remember a huge amount of disappointment surrounding it. And it created what I call the Rocksteady effect, which I'm sure I want to find other examples of it because it's so peculiar, but I feel like it's totally happened in other instances. The Rocksteady effect is this. You make like one or two good things that people love, and then the next thing people hate, they don't like it nearly as much, and then the next thing comes out and people hate that one, but it like creates this weird retroactive, well, I guess the last one, I guess it wasn't that bad. Because Arkham Asylum comes out, everybody loves it. Arkham City comes out, everyone's like, oh my god, this one's even better than Arkham Asylum. Arkham Origins come out, people are like, I don't know about this one. Arkham Knight comes out, everyone's like, ugh, maybe Arkham Origins wasn't that bad. And then, what's the next one? Arkham Knight, Gotham Knights? What the hell is that one called? The multiplayer schlock one comes out and people go, Arkham Knight, you know, maybe it wasn't that bad. I didn't get Origins. They were in like a bundle on Steam. And I didn't pick up, Origins was not in the bundle. Is it going for like cheapo right now on the sale? Because I picked up a couple other things that were very cheap. I got like 5 games for $7 or something. Oh shit, it is. It's like $3.99. The hell? I might as well. Let's see, the first line of the Steam description. As of December 4th, 2016, the online services portion of Batman Arkham Origins will be retired. We thank those that have joined us over joined us to battle over the last 3 years. The single-player campaign may still be played and enjoyed offline. Wow, that really tells me a lot about what this game is. Oh boy, look at all that DLC. Yeah. I might as well just buy this one if it's so cheap. It's like $4. That's how they get you. That's how they get you with this stuff. I don't know. I'm very curious. I'm very curious as to what is the actual arcs of these games, especially as someone who wasn't part of the hype, you know. I remember being hyped when they came out, but I never played them, right? Because I don't know. I've kind of followed people's reactions so far from what I remember. I thought Arkham Asylum was great. and I was a little bit blown away by City. That game really fucking got its hooks in me. I haven't been completely taken by a game like that in a while, where I just sat down and I played it for 13 hours with a little break in between. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, just time flies by. Good thing I'm waiting on emails to get back to me. Yeah, I enjoyed like the post game. I like doing most of the side missions. I really like the Riddler stuff in this game. Something's just so nice about ticking off boxes and getting those Riddler trophies. I had a really good time with like the Riddler challenge rooms. When you have to go, once you collect enough trophies, you get like the coordinates to like a hostage that Riddler has taken. And they're like these whole challenge rooms where you got to use like a bunch of different gadgets, or at least like a couple. They've got like, they start off simple. One of them is like, it's a little sleight of hand trick that you got to use your detective vision to see what he's doing. And then they kind of gradually step up the complexity, and you got to think on your feet. There's a little bit of a time crunch with like, you're on an electrified floor that's going to turn on. Like, oh, is there a grapple point? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I use the zip line? Can I throw a batarang? Is there a target? Oh, it deactivates this thing. And it's cool. And in the last one, that was when I was like, wow, it feels like this is actually like starting to really push my like mechanics, my mechanical skill with with all these different tools that I have. It was really cool. If that is what the Riddler's Revenge stuff is, then I'll check that out, because I genuinely had a lot of fun figuring out those challenge rooms. I love that kind of puzzle design in this game. Gadgets in this game are so neat. They're so cool. There's so much, like when I was crossing off all of the physical challenges, because there's all the collectible challenges, but there's a whole page of just physical challenges. And it'll be stuff like glide for a certain amount of time, things like that. But there's a number of combat challenges. And there's stuff that I didn't even realize. I'm like, okay, so you can shoot the like little electric stun gun at an enemy. And then if they're holding a weapon, they'll start like swinging around because they're all disoriented, and it can hit other enemies. And you can like use like the quick use versions of all the gadgets. You can do like the quick use of the grenade, like the what is it? The sticky grenade thing, and then drop that in a bunch of enemies, and then reactivate it, and then they'll all get blown away. And you combine that with all your combo moves. There's like the crazy ice grenade stuff that you can get, and you can like freeze like 4 enemies at once, and then hit them all with the batarang and like knock them out. There's like 100 different types of takedowns that you have. I was like, wait, there's like a grapple boost takedown? Yeah, there's like, it's like the most minute of things they accounted for in this game, of actually including them as mechanics. Like, just because it would be cool. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you do the grapple boost up to a ledge that an enemy is standing next to, and then you get like, if you're holding down the button when you hit the ledge, you'll like automatically do like a takedown animation on them, because it would be like a cool Batman thing. And I don't know, it's just, I was continually shocked by just how many unique animations there were in the game for little specific scenarios. Like when you get, so in the last game, you would find, you would get all the Riddle and like Riddler trophy locations marked on your mini map, or your map, by finding like a physical map. Like you would pick it up, it was an item. And in this game, instead what they do is there are Riddler informants who are like undercover guys who secretly like work for the Riddler in addition to whoever else they're working for. And you have to go like find them and interrogate them, and then that'll add points to your map, which I thought was neat. So it's like it presents like a new kind of challenge, because if they're in a group of enemies, you can't interrogate them before you take out the other enemies. So you have to take out everyone but them, which means that you just have to avoid. It's honestly like, yeah, something that the previous game was didn't have a neat little enemy function of this one you actually can't fight. Don't fight this guy yet. Which I haven't encountered that much, but that's like kind of a cool little design thing to throw in there of like, actually don't fight this guy. Avoid him for now. Not out of choice, but like it's just better for you. And when you interrogate them, oh my god, there's so many different animations. Like there's the regular one of just like holding them up, and then Batman like punches them in the head after they give him the information. But then there's ones where like if they get knocked down, he has one where like he puts his foot on them. If you're near a wall, he'll like grab them and shove them against the wall and stuff. Like there's so many little animations that they put in the effort to include. A couple things go slightly underused. There's guys with little remote jammer backpacks that like there's like 3 of them, it feels like, in the game. There's dudes with infrared goggles, and they'll scan like the gargoyle vantage point that you can perch on once they're alerted. There's like a whole upgrade just for countering those guys to like mask your body heat. I didn't get it because those guys they're somewhat common, but they were never like a really big problem for me. Like it's only a problem if you're not actively moving around the room. Yeah. Kind of almost a game where it's like, I wish that is there a DLC or anything? Like, I think that this game could do really well with like a DLC to just be like, okay, here's all that shit that maybe got introduced a lot later in the base game, and now we're like gonna throw all of it in at you. I think that could be really fun. Like actually make use and force you to deal with stuff like that. That could be cool. Yeah, I guess maybe up next is not Night. Maybe it's actually Origins. Because it's so cheap now. A very convenient time for me to finish this game. So maybe I'll get back to you guys when I'm done with that. Speaking of more comic book stuff, God, we've been talking about a lot of comic book stuff in the last couple episodes. I decided to sit down with a little bit of modded Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So if you aren't aware, modded Marvel 3 might be like... It might be like the miracle modding story of the last year or so. When did this start? The last year and a half, something like that? So essentially, Marvel 3, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, is a game that is so beloved. It has this incredible fan base. It was a big part of the fighting game community. It was a very popular game among, I guess, more casual players. It's just one of those things. Like, remember last time I talked about people just like Marvel vs. Capcom. People just always think that it's cool. It is this just enduring, beloved thing that people are excited about. Which is why Infinite hurts so much for people. So Marvel 3 has been trapped in this kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it. Number one, it's an old game. It's over 10 years old. It has bad netcode. But it still has this passionate, diehard community. People have been trying to subvert these things, right? How do we freshen this game up? This game which has a relatively figured out meta and tier list and stuff. And maybe sometimes someone comes around with a neat team, some kind of innovative team. But for the most part, it's like, all right, this game has some established top tiers. So how do we shake it up? Well, some communities just don't. They just hang with the game like that forever. Other communities sometimes introduce, like Brawl eventually introduced like Project M and like rebalancing mods and stuff like that. Well, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, it all started with this modded Cyclops. Someone was like, I want to put Cyclops in MVC3. And they I don't know who was the original person to do it, but they basically figured out how to import models into the game and like specifically replace models, because Marvel 3 did have some built-in functionality for switching entire models, because there were alternate costumes for every character. Had at least one alt costume. So using essentially the color palette system, you could say, of being able to swap different versions of the same model, or of different versions of a similar model, or I don't know exactly how it works on a technical level, but something like that they could introduce a new playable character. But in the beginning, the limitations were that you could only do it. They could introduce an actual new character, but it could only reuse animations and I think probably like attack data and stuff like that from existing characters. So he decided to base it off of Sea Viper, because for some reason in Marvel 3, Sea Viper has laser eyes. Okay, that's like not a thing that she has in Street Fighter 4, but she has laser eyes. Always forget about that. So they decided to base it off of her, meaning that Cyclops by default has this very sassy pose when he stands. But it was like kind of a miracle. It was like, whoa, like this is actually a real thing. And from there, it started getting kind of crazy. So eventually people started coming up with, oh, you can actually import, custom voice lines. You can you can make custom animations. That was a big one. And then it really hit its stride when someone developed a way to, so the whole time that they were doing this was a full-on like replacement for a character. It was either, I forget, it was either that it replaced the original character entirely on the character select screen, or it just occupied like one of the alternate palette swaps of that character. Someone developed a new functionality to actually add slots to the character select screen. And that really changed stuff. So visually, there are no new slots on the character select screen, but if you just scroll to the bottom and keep scrolling, there are effectively more placements. There's more slots. And you could just keep expanding that. And people started making more characters, and some of them are really good. And eventually now we're at a point where there are so many modded characters that there is like a community mod. It's called Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Community Edition, I believe. And it is like, it is it consists entirely of characters who are deemed good, like polished enough and balanced enough for actual competitive play. And they're all just assembled. They're all assembled into one mod. And it is shockingly easy to install. You literally just download it off the mod page, off of like Nexus Mods, and then you unzip it, and then there's like one specific folder in the Marvel 3 like Steam folder section, and then you just drag the mod folder into that other folder, and that's it. And then you just boot the game up. It's like really easy to do. And then you just have 58 new characters to play with, all with like 3 different assists, all with like actual full move sets and animations and custom voice lines and things like that. And it is really cool. It is really damn cool. Marvel 3 is a game that I am kind of bound to playing in single player modes and training modes, but God, that game can be really fun to just sit around in training mode with. And especially when you mess around with these characters, because let me tell you, it is really nice to play. Okay. What I really like about this mod specifically and these characters is that they all feel like they're actually designed to be in the game. So here's what I mean by that. It's not because, they're like, they have the most incredible, I don't mean that like, oh, they look like they were in the game originally or anything. Some of them have pretty decent models, but other ones, you can tell. It's fine. Not like super professional quality animations and modeling work or whatever, but like at least like a good acceptable level. Very impressive for a mod. What I mean more so is that gameplay wise, okay, Marvel 3's been out for a long time. When I said that it had a solidified, a pretty solid meta, I mean that people have like figured that game out, and the way that its system works and all of these little bugs and glitches and things. And there are just qualities you can have as a character that make you better at playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3 than other characters, Like, and there are qualities that you can lack that make you worse. And it's maybe one of my least favorite parts of the game is, this looks like a cool character. Like, okay, I think Nemesis is cool in that game. I think it's cool that he's just like I love my big old dudes. I love my big fellas. I would love for Juggernaut to get modded in. I love Juggernaut. I think Nemesis is a cool character. And then I go in training mode and I start checking stuff out with him and like, what has he got? And it turns out not a lot. His combo structure is very simple. He lacks any kind of significant OTG ability. Like a lot of Marvel 3 is hitting OTG, hitting off the ground. Like a whole sequence that ends in the opponent getting knocked down, and then you have some kind of move or an assist or a super or whatever, and it can hit the opponent while they're on the floor. And that either lets you extend your combo or tag into another character or something like that. And like some characters just don't really have any good ones or any. I think everyone has at least one, but like the usefulness of them varies a lot. And it can really limit what they're just allowed to do. And hey, it turns out that the really good characters in this game can just kind of OTG for like free. just for free. And, well, many of them at the very least. And sometimes you just pick up a character and they just don't have tools like that. And you're like, okay. Okay, this is like actually a lot more limited than I wish they were. But like all of these modded characters are actually designed with the way that the game plays in mind. They have like options for stuff like that. They might have weaknesses in certain areas, but most, if not all of them, can play the game at a competent level, like baseline. They can all compete. And there is a ton of stuff that is probably like unexplored with them, which is really cool. So it's 58 characters. I tried out like a decent amount of the new roster. Not all of them, because 58. But enough that it was I got like I think a pretty good handle, and I found a couple characters I really like. The first things first, I was like, I want to try out the Thing. I love the Thing. I love my big guys. And Thing is cool. He's a big rock guy. He's a big rock guy. He rolls around. He has some moves stolen from Hulk. He's cool. And then, so I was messing around on the roster with a bunch of different characters. They have Onslaught, who is the fusion of Xavier and Magneto, and he's this really big, stupid, fucking looking armored monster Magneto. It's crazy. And he is super cool. He feels like a boss character. And then like all this cool stuff where he gets to like throw out like a bunch of moves that just toss the opponent all over the screen, and then he can throw out like these magnetic projectiles that just zip them back over to him, and it's cool. Doing stuff with him is really cool looking. And then, I was looking around and I was like, oh yeah, Charlie Nash from Street Fighter. He's in this game. He's in this mod. And I wasn't looking at him because I sort of figured, it would be like the classic Charlie. Even though Guile is in this mod, I kind of figured it would be like, oh, it's going to be like another... He's just going to be like classic Alpha Charlie. I kind of imagined that it would be that sort of nostalgia thing. And then I check him out and I was like, oh, hang on. This isn't Alpha Charlie. This is Street Fighter V Charlie. Oh. And like, I was not expecting the level of catharsis that I got from playing a version of that character who feels good. Who feels good. I played Charlie Nash for like a season and a half in Street Fighter V. And I had this love-hate relationship with him. Because there were things that he had that were really fun. I love like, he has some of the most fun normals, like the best normals, some of the best normals in the game. But Christ, oh my God, like, his conversions just suck ass. Like, he cannot... All of his amazing... I would say, like, the most succinct way to summarize Nash's weaknesses in 5 is he has great normals. He has pretty good reward off of his, like, combos. Good meter build, good damage, good, like, corner carry and, like, Oki setups and all that. He just cannot get from point A to point B. None of his good normals are special cancelable. Like, his really good normals. They're just only, like, his high risk ones are actually comboable. And it's so limiting feeling. When I say feels bad, it feels like I can't do anything, dude. He has such a Street Fighter V syndrome where they're like, no, just clamp down on the character's combo routes and everything that they can do. And God, he's so... It's like, it's so frustrating. Just open the character up a little bit. Just loosen him up a little bit, and they never did. And that's why I just ended up playing Akira by the end of that game. Because she just felt so much better. Like she was, I don't know, designed to be played. And it's so nice to play a version of that character who can, like, actually do shit. And he's got like almost everything. He's got like he's still a motion input character. He's not charge anymore like he is in SF5. He's got motions. He's got like the sort of like falling axe kick. He has the like standing crescent kick move. I don't even remember what it's called. The name's escaping me right now. He has the stealth dash. He has the teleport and like the stealth dash, and those are really cool. He can do the stealth dash. It's just like his V-Trigger version. He can do the stealth dash into the two different follow-ups where he gets like the jump up and then the slam and the big crescent kick that launches. And oh, of course the slam follow-up can hit OTG and you can cancel it into like a super. Oh, of course, yeah. One of his supers is just an install, and it's called V-Trigger, and it just lets him cancel his normals into his stealth dash, which I'm fine with. And I was like, wow, this is just like a real version of this character, and he's like fun, and you can kind of do like Nash stuff with him. How crazy, how neat. That was a great experience. That brought a real smile to my face. Yeah, I would definitely check out just to have fun with. Like if you just like Marvel 3, or you like messing around with the characters in training mode, or you have someone who can actually play with you, I would totally download that mod because it's really easy to install. Besides having a long download time. Because Nexus like throttles your download speed if you're not a premium member. And there is a PDF that's included with the mod pack, like in the folder, that has all of the character movesets. That took me a while to figure out, and like a visual guide for who is like what everyone's position is on the character select screen. So yeah, it'll be right there. So we finally, Kat and I finally finished the first season of part 3. God, it took a while. It took a minute, you know. It took us so much less time to finish part 2, because part 2 is like what? 16 episodes or something like that? Like it's actually, wait, is it? Hang on, I gotta do some, remember how doing math is embarrassing for me? It's like a 24 episode season. Part 1 is it's a 15 episode season. Okay. Yeah. 15 episodes in part 2. 24. Almost 10 more in the first season of part 3. Yeah, they eventually figured out not to structure them like this. Because part 3 does feel a little bit long. It feels a little long. It feels longer in the anime than later parts, which are actually longer in the manga. Yeah, so I guess I would like to talk a little bit about my thoughts, but I guess it's been interesting to watch her reactions to things. Not what I necessarily expected. So, you know, I was what was it? I was over at her house like last week or something, and we were watching it, and I was getting just a little sleepy, and I was like, I might just close my eyes and take a short little nap. I was kind of debating it, and then I saw that the next episode up was the sun, and I was like, oh, I'll fall asleep for the sun, dude. I will I'll conk out. And then when I woke up almost exactly 20 minutes later when the episode was over, and I'm like, how was it? Do you like the sun? And she goes, dude, that episode was awesome. I'm like, what? She goes, dude, that scene with the camel was so funny. It's like, okay, all right, sure, let's go. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And then she liked Death 13. She liked that one. These are like the last couple arcs of that season, so those are the ones that are freshest in my mind. She liked Death 13. She thought it had the coolest design so far, which I agree. I think Death 13 has a cool look. Let me and then she didn't care that much for Judgment, which I was surprised at, or High Priestess. I like both those. I like Judgment a lot. I think Judgment is a great arc. I am like really Polnareff is like one of my favorite characters. Let me pull up like I want to pull up the actual episode list while I'm talking. Polnareff is like one of my favorite characters. I think it's weird. I wish that the other Crusaders who weren't Jotaro, or I wish just like Kakyoin or Avdol got as much development time as Polnareff does, because he has like a nice solid arc. He has a nice solid arc where he goes through this whole, he gets this introduction, and there's like this big dramatic event that happens when Avdol dies, and he feels super guilty for it. And then the Judgment arc, you get this scene where like his wish gets fulfilled to like bring him and his sister Avdol and his sister back from the dead, but they're like zombies and they start eating him, and he is literally being eaten alive by his own guilt. And it's great. And like by the end of it, when Avdol comes back, which I don't like that. I really don't like Avdol coming back. But like when it's done, it's like Polnareff has gone through something. He's gone through like a whole arc, and he's still, but this is what I like about Araki's writing. Polnareff he's still the same guy. He's still the same guy that you met the first time he shows up. He's like this goofy, woman-loving French guy who has like a bit of a serious side to him when he has to be. He's got this kind of this inner seriousness, and like sense of vengeance and things. But just, he can kind of switch between them when the situation needs him to. But by the end, but he's still that guy, but he's grown up a little bit. He feels like he's changed. He's a little bit of a different guy. He's been through some experiences and he's come out a little more mature. And that's all I need from a character arc, right? And unfortunately, like, other characters just don't really get that. Jotaro is a very functional protagonist, right? He shows up, he does his thing, he's Jotaro. Joseph, we've already had like a whole thing, right? We already had a whole story devoted to making him a lovable guy. And then Avdol and Kakyoin are just meh. They're just meh. I don't care that much for them. There's like a couple, I guess there's like the Kakyo and Cherry thing. That's like one memorable moment that he has. Never really gets brought up again. Yeah, I'm just looking at the episode list. Strength. Okay, here's the thing. I didn't realize it. I think I had some thoughts about part 3 that I needed to like revise. I think rewatching this has actually been kind of nice because it's especially with the rest of the series in mind, looking back at this, part 3. Okay. It's really interesting to see how it compares to the other parts. Many people say that like, oh, the other parts fit into, they're kind of like references to other there's certain types of stories, right? Part 1 is like a vampire story. Some people call it like a horror thing sometimes, maybe, I guess. Part 2 is like Indiana Jones. People say part 3 is like Around the World in 80 Days. Part 4 is like a little, part 4 is like a slice of life anime crossed with Twin Peaks. Part 5 is a gangster story. Part 6 is a prison break. Part 7 is a western. Part 8 is Twin Peaks again, but somehow weirder. And so on, right? Yeah, you could definitely say there's the obvious illusion. They make the reference to Around the World in 80 Days in part 3. But really, what I've realized is part 3 is the most horror part. It is easily the most horror-inspired part of the series. Mind you, stands were modeled, the word for stand in Japanese, or like the kanji that it's sometimes written with, is like, it's called ghostly ripple. It's like a ghost, it's supposed to have some kind of like spirit, supernatural form. And mind you, this is coming right off of parts 1 and 2, which had strong horror influences that were pretty obvious, especially in part 1, right? But part 3 especially, like, there is a real point that the show is trying to make to establish atmosphere. And I look at strength, and everyone thinks of the strength fight as just being like, cringy orangutan. But man, I totally forgot that whole segment where they get to the boat. There's this big ship, this big like cruise ship. It's not like a cruise ship. It's like I don't know what kind of ship it's supposed to be. It's like a big ship, right? And everyone's getting on, and they're just checking it out. And the shots of just the empty hallways and the music, and like when the crane just out of nowhere swings over and decapitates that guy, it's freaky, and it feels like something out of a horror movie. The atmosphere, like the tension that's built up of like, dude, like fucking, like when they find that orangutan in that cage, it's like, what? Like, it's a really memorable scene. It is like a really memorable visual because it's such a creepy thing to just have orangutans specifically, because they're obviously apes are kind of close to humans. They're like one of the closest animals to humans. But orangutans especially are noteworthy for being like really intelligent and resourceful and actually like good at using tools. Like orangutans, like they can go spearfishing. Like they are shockingly, almost scarily resourceful and intelligent. And so having this thing that like it could like, what is it thinking about? Why is it's just this weird vibe coming off of this animal. It's like really compelling. Like you really want to know what's going on. And then, you know, of course there's the scene where it really feels like he's getting a little too handsy with this little girl in the shower. And it's like, okay, Araki. I feel like Araki writes stuff like that. There's something like that in like every part. Not like the sexual assault kind of way, but just something where I'm picturing, like, a lot of people would say that it's maybe in bad taste. And all I can picture is Araki at his desk going, dude, this is fucking crazy. Dude, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. That's what I picture him doing all the time when he's writing scenes like that. Dude, like, what am I on right now? Yeah, and if you think about it, I really got this with, strength and then justice. The justice arc. Like, that is like a whole horror movie. And it makes a lot of sense because it kind of becomes the formula for stand battles. If I was to describe a stand battle, like the basic structure of most stand fights in the series, it's the protagonist or protagonists go somewhere, something strange starts happening, something bizarre, and then they have to figure out that there is an enemy who is trying to attack them or mess with them in some way, and then try to figure out who they are or how the ability works, and then come up with a way to counteract it and use their own abilities to fight them. So like most stand fights, that's like the notable thing about JoJo, is that the fights are rarely just like punch outs. There's a couple of those, but the fights are usually much more cerebral, and they're a lot more chess-like, where the characters they're finding clues and they're figuring out what the enemy is doing. And then usually once the opponent is actually confronted, it's typically a short fight, right? Like that's the entire way that Jotaro works. As like how he functions in a fight is, if anything is within a certain like 3-meter range of me, I can just fucking kill them in 1 second. The challenge is him actually getting within the range and figuring out who he even has to attack. And if you think about it, that's a lot. That's like how a lot of horror movies work. That's how a lot of horror movies work, you know? Characters go somewhere, everything's hunky-dory, and then someone dies. There's some kind of supernatural thing that starts going on. What do we have to do? We have to figure out how it works and what the monster is, and then we have to figure out if it has a weakness and where we can find it and try to fight it. And that's how there's a lot of horror stories that work like that. You think about like The Thing or something. The Thing's a great example, actually. Is there anything that I guess Yellow Temperance is a little bit like The Thing. Also, detective stories. Araki is a big fan of mysteries. In the Justice fight, there is literally Jotaro references the little trick that he uses to trip Enyaba up is literally a thing that he references to Columbo. He says, I learned this on Columbo, how he writes his name, he writes the wrong name down in the guest book, and then he's like, how did you know my name was Jotaro? And that's how he catches her in the lie. Like, that's a very Columbo trick, right? And it's funny because I almost feel like Araki almost stumbled into this. I wonder if, like, you know, you can tell in the early days of part 3 that he is not super sure where he wants to take the stands. And like he has a general, like you can see like, oh, he's got the rough idea and you can see the potential of it, but he hasn't really hammered out all the details yet. There's a lot of stuff that just isn't quite figured out. Like I think of a little detail, like it's actually just sort of a plot hole, retcon, who knows what you want to call it, inconsistency of that first fight with Jotaro and Avdol in the prison. Jotaro uses like he like smashes a toilet or like a pipe and then uses it to the water from that to put out Avdol's flames. And then later on, Avdol is like, oh, actually my flames can't be put out by water because it's like not really fire. It's like magic, essentially. It's like made of spirit energy. Like that's just little details that he's figuring out. There's things like talking with stands, using your stand to talk to someone else, which surprisingly never comes up again. I feel like he could have written, excuse me. I feel like he could have written something to use that. Like you would think that the power to just basically communicate telepathically between two characters would be used fairly frequently. Like I don't know, two villains meet up. Two villain stand users meet up and they're sitting, oh, wouldn't that be great? They're sitting right next to each other, or they're sitting like across, like in two separate tables at a restaurant, but they're using their stands to hear each other and communicate. And despite the fact that, maybe the main character is watching them, they're like, oh, they're never talking. Like, when are they, how are they communicate? Why are these two people in proximity to each other? It's because they're talking with their stands. He never does anything like that, which I think is a little, I was like, oh, he should have used that. He should use that more. I don't think he ever uses it after like part 3, which is a shame. Or God, like shrinking your stand down, like in the lovers fight, which, I mean, granted, they say that it takes a lot of concentration to be able to do that, but yeah, it's like, yeah, that Kat was like, oh my God, are we doing this now? Is this actually what they're going to do? They're going to get tiny. And I was like, yeah, do you want to bet if he ever uses this ever again in the story? She's like, this is never coming back again. I'm like, it's never coming up again. And I really feel like in this state where he's figuring stuff out, like, I wonder if he just kind of leaned on stuff that he already liked, you know? If he just leaned on murder mysteries or just mysteries in general and horror movies and the way that those are structured. There's so many stands. Oh my God. Like, I feel like half the stands in part 3 are based on horror movie monsters in some way. Like Dark Blue Moon, the creature from the Black Lagoon. There has to be a ghost ship somewhere, right? Ebony Devil. Okay, here's the thing. I always assumed Ebony Devil was a Chucky reference, like the evil possessed doll. And Kat immediately picked it out as being a reference instead to, what is it? It's called Horror Trilogy? Or like, hang on. Let me see. Evil African Doll. Black Devil Doll? That is very similar to Ebony Devil. The fuck is this? Black Devil Doll from Hell, 1984. No. Evil. It's some like really like horror trilogy anthology or something like that. Evil African Doll movie. Trilogy of Terror. Yeah. Look up Trilogy of Terror, like doll. And you're like, oh, that is just Yellow Temperance. Sorry, not Yellow. Ebony Devil. It's just like a little African guy with a spear, a wooden doll. That was crazy. Like, she totally picked that out. Yellow Temperance is like the Blob. Is there a horror movie villain who like lives in mirrors? Because I loved Hangman. I think Hangman is such a cool idea. Wheel of Fortune is Christine? That's the car, right? Yeah, I always get Christine and Carrie mixed up just because of the C. Justice feels like such a horror movie plot of like the ghost town with the haunted hotel and everything. Death 13 that's just Freddy Krueger, right? Hang on. Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Okay, so that would have been before. No, that would have been way before. The JoJo started 87. That would have definitely been before. Yeah, part 3. So yeah, very obvious a Nightmare on Elm Street reference. Did I have other thoughts on it? A lot of the arcs in part 3 they could be a little bit hit or miss, you know. It's very you got to watch it a little bit differently. I think the first 2 parts are very like, we're going on an adventure, it's just kind of driving forward and forward. Part 3, he's taken his time a little bit. That might be a fault of the anime for the way that it adapts the manga, because it is forced to be a little long-winded, right? The pacing is a little drawn out. Things that could have been 1 episode get split into 2. Wheel of Fortune was a lot more fun than I remembered. It's a really dumb stand, but it's just super car with spikes and shit. When's JoJo Kart coming out? But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I think that I remember almost dropping the series after Dark Blue Moon, and then not doing it. And I'm grateful that I did. I'm grateful that I didn't drop it. But I do remember that really coloring my perception of the first season of part 3. I think on a rewatch, I can be a little kinder to it. It's a little goofier. It's more fun. I mean, Christ, that Wheel of Fortune fight literally has like a like Jotaro, like fucking Jotaro has like his fake out death where they think he's died. And then the Wheel of Fortune guy goes, "I win! Part 3 is over!" And Jotaro like explodes out of the ground, and he's like, "Actually, no, it's not. I'm the main character." That's basically the dialogue. They just break the fourth wall like that. It's the only time in the whole series. It's so weird. It's really weird. Like, you can feel Araki like, like he's fucking around a little too much. Yeah, I'm surprised that she wasn't as hot on High Priestess. I really like that fight. I think it's cool. I like the moments of like Jotaro calling Suzy Q. I think the stand in I like that it's that fight is largely confined to like the submarine. They're in the yellow submarine. Yeah, she wasn't super into it, but I like it a lot. I think it's a cool stand as well. Judgment. Okay, when I talk about weird reaction that she has. So personally, I have very few things in JoJo that I would point to and say, I think that was the wrong decision. I wish that he hadn't done that. I wish he would have done it differently. There's not that many. I think that for the most part, the series really works when you kind of just trust Araki and just sort of let him take the wheel, you know? That's why I think, you know, when I reread part 8, I think it's much better on a reread where, you know, you don't have all this time month to month to month to think about the story. Because, like, you can just kind of, like, go through it. And you don't build up, like, certain expectations or anything. Like, I think the story is a lot better when you just go through it in, like, big chunks. And genuinely, when you can just, like, binge a part, I think it's actually better than... I think the ride works better. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, right. Generally, I kind of trust Araki to write, at least competently. But bringing Avdol back is one of the few things that I genuinely don't like. When he dies, quote unquote, during the Hanged Man and Emperor fight, that was one of the most memorable moments of part 3 for me. that was like a big deal. I love the way that that episode is framed, because you get into this rhythm, right? Like that's 10 episodes in. You've been in the rhythm of go here, fight a guy, go here, fight a guy, go here, fight a guy for 9 episodes before this, of pretty formulaic storytelling with these 5 characters, and it's very, it's formulaic. And then suddenly, this dude shows up, and it seems like it's just going to be like any other fight, except, oh, there's 2 of them. That's the twist. And then Avdol, who's been like a sort of mentor, older figure, kind of like, just like an older, more experienced stand user, really powerful guy, just gets shot in the fucking head and dies. And that's how the episode ends. And it's like, oh, fuck. Like, he's willing to just go there. Rocky's willing to just kill off a main character of the story like that. And that is so memorable to me. And everything that happens afterwards and the way that all unfolds. The fact that Jay Guile is the guy who killed Polnareff's sister. Them getting like revenge on him, and like, oh my God, I was really invested. I was like, holy shit, no, like this is really cool. I was not expecting this to go here. And it also made a lot of sense to me why Avdol was not the most developed character, because he's gonna die really fast. And then he gets resurrected, and I'm like, oh, that kind of makes it feel like a little cheap, to the point where I and many other people assumed that it was sort of an improvised decision to bring him back. Like that wasn't part of the original plan. No, that's wrong. Araki always planned on bringing Avdol back. I think it was just a bad idea. I think it kind of detracts from that character motivation that Polnareff had. And particularly, I really dislike the fact that the other Crusaders knew about it and didn't tell him. That feels like they say like, oh, you would have said something because you got such a big mouth, Polnareff. But like, that feels really mean. That feels like uncharacteristically mean. Kat thought it was funny, so I guess it worked on her. But for me, that just felt like really out of character for them, and just mean. Like, what the fuck, guys? That's like not really. That's a really uncool. Like, Polnareff thought that he got him killed, and it was specifically because that whole situation of Polnareff storming into that fight because he was trying to find his sister's murderer, and then Avdol coming in to assist him and then dying for it. And Polnareff feels like, oh my God, my strong-headedness and my inability to control my emotions got my friend killed. Oh my God, like that incredible guilt that must be weighing over him, which you see in the Judgment arc. Judgment and Justice, always get those mixed up. In the Judgment arc, in that arc. And the fact that he was alive the whole time, and it's like, dude, what the fuck? And it's played as a joke, and it's like, no, I'm not really cool with that. I would be kind of fucking pissed off. Like, why couldn't they just tell him that he's recovering in the hospital? And like, what? Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. It just feels unnecessarily cruel. And the fact that they all just kind of laugh about it, and Polnareff is just standing there like, what the fuck? Is really weird. And I don't like it. I think it detracts from the emotion of the original death, and the way that it's handled by the other Crusaders in order to explain it feels, 1, really half-assed, and 2, just like out of character and really unlikable. I think they're really unlikable in a way that never really shows up again in the series. Like, Stardust Crusaders is a very gang-focused part. Not like in the part 5 way, like a literal, mob, not like a mafia, but like, like a group dynamic focused part where it's called Stardust Crusaders. They are the Stardust Crusaders. So to just have that kind of interaction between them that feels so, just hostile is bizarre. It's really weird. Almost like bullying. I don't know. I really dislike it. And here is the difference between Kat and I. When Avdol finally shows back up, I remember when I saw that, I was like, what? What is going on here? When Kat saw that, you know what she said? She goes, "He's black from the dead." I was like, that's it? That's all you have to say? And she's like, yep. I'm like, all right. So that's the first half of part 3. That's Journey to Egypt. I'm really looking forward to the second season because that is kind of infamously where Rocky starts to really figure it out. He starts to get it together. I'm looking forward to those. What's the first? Isn't that like a weird first? What's the first? Is it Geb? I think. Yeah, obviously the Osiris fight. I have to remember, I don't remember all of the... Oingo Boingo! Yeah, they got Oingo Boingo. There's some fun ones. There's actually, I'm looking at the episode list. I think all of these are actually really good. Even Alessi. Yeah, actually, second season's kind of like straight heat. I'm looking at the fight, like the episode list. I think it's all really good, actually. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that through with the rest of her. She said that she's going through this because she wants to get to parts. She wants to be caught up when we get to part 7, or when that like comes out. Which, like, technically, could you go through part 7 without having seen or read anything previous? Yes, technically, but like you really shouldn't. You really shouldn't. Yeah, I would not like, it's technically possible. And, it's one sort of neat aspect of the series that you can kind of just watch any part at any point besides like part 6, which is like very dependent on previous parts. You can basically get through each part, without having seen any of the other ones. It's like a neat little detail about it, but I would not recommend it. The story is JoJo forms. People tend to think of JoJo as being multiple individual arcs, and it certainly is, but over time I've come to also see it as one gigantic arc that consists of like smaller pieces and chunks that thematically tie together, but the whole thing ties together at a certain level and has surprisingly deep themes, which I would love to talk about as we go through the show. So I'm going to draw this to a close. Am I rhyming? Who knows? Hey, that wasn't even intentional. All right. If you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I made a new video on my side channel about the origin of media control symbols, so you can check that out. I got a comment on it that's really funny. That's like, I would suggest maybe adding some more like involved edits to your videos. And I'm like, dude, you're critiquing like a finger painting. Those side channel videos are not meant to be good. Those videos are not meant to be watched. Those are for me. You can check that out if you'd like. Do I got anything else? No, not really. I hope everyone has a good one. I have been Tigan. Subscribe and go to the Patreon and check out the last video on System Shock. I'm also like 60 subscribers away from hitting 7,000, so on the main channel. So tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your church, your mosque, your synagogue. Yeah, sub to Cellar. Sub to Cellar. That kind of rolls off the tongue pretty well. I could start a hashtag campaign. Anyway, bye.